One.
Welcome, everyone, to what is certainly going to be the last episode of In Taberna Forever. We actually have an excuse now for not having produced anything over the course of the last few months. Um, and that is because for those of you who do not know, I'm sure virtually everybody listening does know by now the tragic news that Knight Errant has indeed um, received his eternal reward. This happened on December 30th, which happens to coincide with the date of the coronation of Blessed Karl of Austria, who Knight Errant was very, very, very much devoted to. But I think we just felt that it would be sort of a missed opportunity if we didn't put one last episode out there, kind of celebrating his life, his personal qualities, his sanctity, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll also share our own experiences with him. He's been our friend for a very, very long time, and I have with me some people who've been on. Uh, Actually, I think all of you have been on into Baron at least once, right? We have Terillian, we have Serp Kerp, and we have Meme Fryer. Yeah, I think all of you have been on at least once. So
Yes, I have
that's
been on.
that's
Yeah.
pretty much what we're gonna do.
Yeah. So after fighting his chronic illness for quite a while, finally succumbed. But hopefully he's up there looking down on us and protecting us, as the saints are wont to do. So I would say I was probably the first of us to meet Knight Errant. I think that's accurate. I met him in fall of 2014. And we met under some very, very odd circumstances. Should I go into that?
Oh, yeah.
No, by all means, yeah.
All right. So there was a page, or still is a page on Facebook called Earl of Grey. And Earl of Grey had made a post denouncing neo pagans on the right. They had been harassing us for a while every time we brought up Christianity and saying all sorts of blasphemous things about Christ. And so he and I had devised a post denouncing neo-pagans on the right back in September of 2014. And then out of the woodwork, after I suppose seeing me argue with some of them in the comments, Knight Errant comes and talks to me and says that he has emerged from the shadows and been observing myself and especially Earl of Grey for
That
a while.
sounds so much like him.
Yeah, he'd been observing us for a while, and that he had finally decided to reveal himself and enter our broader circles. And so we started talking. And it was very, very strange because, normally I would just say, okay, you sound crazy. I'm going to not talk to you. But for some reason, I actually decided to voice with him on Skype.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I
we
said-
had Skype back then.
Yeah, I remember Skype, guys.
Oh
Is
yeah,
Anyway,
Skype still around?
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, but only Gen Xers use that, right?
It was
Um,
pretty funny back in the day.
my supervisor uses it, so.
So boomers
Yeah.
and Gen Xers.
Yep.
My old Skype account had I would just get randomly called by people that were in the burgeoning alt-right movement, and it's like I wonder how many of those people because I never told them that I stopped using Skype. Just are like, oh, I know whatever happened to Serp Kerp. He just stopped showing up on Skype.
He was found by the feds. So anyway, Knight Errant and I start talking, and we start talking about Catholicism. I hadn't converted yet, but I had always, had sympathies with Catholicism for almost 10 years at that point. And he was the first Catholic to tell me that Protestants go to hell and that C.S. Lewis was in hell. but who wasn't a crazy sedevacantist. And that really made an impression on me. Because for some reason, I had this impression that Catholicism was just completely liberal now, and that there was no such thing as traditional Catholicism that wasn't kooky sedevacantists. And I had always kind of taken sedevacantism as a bit of a reductio ad absurdum for Catholicism. And so the fact that, he was being so forward about the truths of the faith with me, but was in good standing with Rome, was really surprising to me. And so, although he seemed very strange and was telling me these odd things that were very conspiratorial about how the Grey Company was real, the Grey Company being a group of rangers from Lord of the Rings for those who are plebs.
He is totally correct about that, by the way. They
Yeah,
are real.
he's right about that. The Grey Company is real. Anyway, so he told me that, and after that, I decided, okay, so what should I do to become Catholic? And he got me to start going to RCIA, and that led me on the road that I am now. And frankly, if it hadn't been for his honesty, I might never have finally crossed the Tiber. I would have put it off so much that, well, looking at the state of things today, I might never have converted. I might never have been able to think my way past modern problems. So I'm very, very grateful to be often refer to him as my. I would jokingly and in a very non-gay way call him my vampiric sire. Emphasis on in a very non-gay way. We had a very rocky relationship over the years.
I'll take your.
But yeah.
I'll take
Yeah,
your word
you want
for
to give
that.
some examples of the rocky relationship?
Okay. So when we first met, I was more racist than I am now, and he was less racist than he would come to be. He told me, for example, when he met me, that he kind of admired Martin Luther King, but that Nelson Mandela. Yeah. He said Nelson Mandela was bad. He was a terrorist, but I do kind of admire the work of Martin Luther King, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to red pill him on this eventually. Anyway, one day we were talking about me and Serpkerp was there as well, and I think Classical Theist was there, although Nice Meme Fryer was not there. This is in the summer of 2015.
Yeah.
We were talking about Masons and the Jewish question, the so-called Jewish question. And Knight Errant accused us of, blaming other people when I brought up Jewish involvement in certain subversive activities. And then I screamed at him and said, "You're not even white, Knight Errant! You're jealous of our Aryan cohesion!" And I completely lost it. I don't know why I lost it so hard, but I did lose it.
Yeah.
And he was just laughing. Whereas I was in tears afterwards, and I was too afraid to talk to him for a while. He thought it was hilarious how mad I got about it. We made up, but our friendship
I think
over
he
the
knew
years...
that you were gonna cool down.
Yeah, I mean...
Because that wasn't the first time.
I mean, I have a history. I have a history of getting...
To be fair, Tyrion, you have a history of doing things that that you almost immediately undo, such as you refusing to accept my friend request for the longest time.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I rejected everyone's friend request here multiple times, except
And
for
your anarcho-capitalist anti-tariff tirade.
Oh yeah, when I got mad at the mailman because he insisted I pay a tariff for a package I had ordered. Yeah, so I have a history of getting really, really explosively angry and then regretting it afterwards.
Not so anymore. Not as much anymore.
Not anymore. And I owe a lot of that to Knight Errant, because becoming Catholic, the humiliation of having to confess that stuff in the confessional kind of set me on the right path.
Yeah,
that's the
now
one
you
good thing
only
about
occasionally.
confession is
Now
What's
you
that?
only occasionally have fistfights with communists in the streets.
Hey. It wasn't a fist fight. I provoked them into hitting me first.
He did call you a Maoist, so
Yeah, he did call me a Maoist. That was funny. But anyway, yeah, so that was my initial experience of Knight Errant, but I'm gonna pass the
Yeah, I think I'll go next. So it basically, so we had been involved, all of us, in like some Catholic or like just sort of reactionary Facebook groups in throughout like
Back
20, like latter
back when
half of
Facebook was
2014 to
thing.
2015. At least that's when I was involved with them.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of similar to what may have prompted Errant to reach out to Tyrillian. I think he kind of was sort of observing my involvement. It's kind of strange. Like he kind of just detects. He observes people before he just reaches out to them as someone that he might think is I guess have some kind of value that he might see in that person. And that's kind of what happened. He reached out to me and we just talked. We just had a long conversation about like about you know Thomism and you know Catholic philosophy, Catholic metaphysics, and then he kind of introduced his own sort of meta historical spin on that, and it was just sort of a very long theological philosophical conversation, and it's very interesting because he himself was never really someone who rigorously studied, say, Thomistic philosophy or scholastic philosophy. He knew his stuff, but he never dived so deeply into it as you know some other people might
As
have.
you
But
have. Yeah.
right, but you wouldn't get that impression because he was just able to effortlessly um, handle a subject matter he might not even be all too familiar with, but yet understand the basics of it so well that um, you could just speak on it and
Just speak
speak
on
on
it
it in a
and
very
speak profoundly.
You could
speak on it in a
say you
very
could say that Knight was a
rhetorically captivating
dilettante.
way.
You could say that Knight was a dilettante in its original sense, where it was actually a positive term, referring to someone who has a very, very broad knowledge base rather than a very, very narrow one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It came to mean someone whose broad knowledge base is so superficial and who's also pretentious. But in the case of Knight, I would say that you could apply the term positively.
yes, and
Oh,
it was really
he was
just
absolutely not
in
superficial.
that
I mean, please go on. Sorry about
yeah
that. Please go on.
in that conversation with him, I immediately get the sense that this guy is he thinks about things at 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 such a level that you know I don't, at such a level that most people don't, and not only the content of his thoughts, but the way that he expresses them, his articulation is so it's just so captivating and charismatic that you feel like he's one of those few people that you talked to as just a pure pleasure in itself. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
most people, you talk to because you like them and you do enjoy talking with them, but you know, it's mostly just talking with them because you like them, cultivating a friendship, and you do value what they say. But with Knight, you know, of course, you do talk to him because you like him because he's your friend, and we'll get into how wonderful of a friend he really was. But also, just talking to him is just a pleasure purely for itself, and he's just one of those few people that I can really say that about. But
He had
so
a
yeah,
score of 100 in the speech skill.
absolutely,
Oh yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah, speech 100 was a meme that was basically invented for him.
yeah.
He put a lot of points into intelligence, but even more points into charisma.
And he had such a unique way of speaking and writing. This is one story that I kind of have.
I kind of stopped talking to him like after 2016 or so for a while. And then I kind of just dropped off Facebook completely. And then I made my Twitter account. I made my sort of classical theist persona in like 2017. And then I started, gaining more traction and followers on Twitter. I see this account, Knight Errant. He had never gone by that name on Facebook. I see this account, Knight Errant, and purely by the way that he would type things, I'll be honest, and I mean this in the best way possible. He says things in kind of such a schizo kind of a strange way, Uh, I knew that was him. I knew that was Knight Errant.
In these circles, schizo is a compliment.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that was him before. He had never gone by that avatar before. He had never gone by that name. But I knew that was him. I recognized him. And so I reached out to him. I'm like, are you, the name that, are you so-and-so? And it was. And so, and then I had to reach out to him later because I was dealing with the left calves. I was dealing with people like Kev and I thought, man, I'm kind of at a loss on how to deal with these people. I know the perfect person who
I know the
would
perfect guy to stick on them.
Yeah, the perfect person to know how to know what the root of the problem is with them, to know how to deal with them, and who would have the will and the impulse to deal with them. He was someone who always really wanted to he saw a lot of value in just posting
Yeah.
in sort of meme warfare. I mean, that's a really cringe term now. I'm not going to use that again. But
It was okay. Okay, we used to use that back in summer of 2016.
Yeah, at that time it like
when we hoped that things would have a solution. So.
Mm-hmm. But no, he was a big believer in that. He was a big believer in mimetic warfare, in using these and then when I say a believer in mimetic warfare, I mean he would attach like esoteric and spiritual significance to these things. Like, but yeah, I mean that's just sort of my initial overview of my interactions with them. And of course, over that course of time, we became very close friends, and yeah, that's kind of that. So it's kind of difficult to talk about it because it's so recent. Yeah,
There's so much to talk about with him.
Yeah, should I talk about it now?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So after I left Sedevacantism, I kind of like joined, I guess, like, I don't know, right-wing spheres or religious spheres or stuff, whatever, online on Facebook. And this is before everything got purged after Trump won the election. So you could pretty much say whatever you wanted or have any kind of group you wanted on Facebook. And so can I name the group that we originally all a part of before I founded my second group?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty famous, and there were thousands.
Okay. So I joined this group called Rel, and there was like endless flame wars between Catholics and Orthodox on Rel. And I don't know, something is really interesting is that even though in the English world numerically Protestants are the majority, Protestants were like this tiny minority as far as like people that were well read. And it was just this giant, or well read or pretty committed online. And then it was just this giant battle between Orthodox and Catholics, and classical theist and Knight Errant at the time, and then eventually Trallian. Nice meme friar is going to come along later. But, we would engage with these Orthodox and kind of like battles and flame wars and all that. But what we kept noticing is that the mods on that board were just so pro-Orthodox and would just kick us and censor us and stuff. What?
They were just kind of dicks, man. I mean, those.
Yeah, I mean, it goes beyond the whole I don't know if denomination is the right word, but like
yeah, I mean, their
because,
problems
like
were
some of them were just bad people.
their problems didn't ultimately stem from them being Orthodox. Their problems, I mean, one of the main Orthodox mods that we had a problem with almost never attended liturgy. He just had a very strong pro-Orthodox bias when it came to running the group because he was a dick, not because he was Orthodox.
So anyway, I ended up founding my own group, and I brought a bunch of Catholics onto that group. And that's kind of how I became a lot closer friends with Knight Errant, with Classical Theists, with Trillian, eventually with Nice Meme Friar, with Argent, who I frequently make YouTube videos with, and a whole host of other people I'm friends with online to this day.
Do
And
not forget to mention Gabriel Syme.
Gabriel Sign. Gabriel Sign is usually pretty quiet online, so I don't know if I should have brought him up.
He tweets all the time. Yeah, he's so I met Knight Errant shortly before I met Gabriel Syme. So I met Knight Errant in summer of 2015, I think. And Gabriel Syme, I met around that time. So um, I wasn't Catholic then. I had been going to mass, I'd been going to church, but I still had a number of questions left. I still had some doubts and such. Um, yeah, and and in one of the most fantastic displays of pique and annoyance, right? Um, Knight Errant told me, "You must get baptized, you child of wrath," because that's the kind of thing he would say.
Well, he was forward about the status of those outside of the church.
Oh yeah,
Well, he was very anti-SSPX for a time, and he started a few flame wars over that on the Catholic
Funny how
Facebook
things
group.
change.
Yeah, but ever since then, I just kind of kept talking to him online. He wasn't a kind of person that I would talk to every day. He seemed to have a lot of stuff that he would be into at any one time. But whenever you would talk with him, he had this very addictive personality where you could just have conversations with him, for hours and hours and hours. And it's
worth mentioning that he was a theater kid in high school, so
you could tell if you ever
he had a talent for performance in a good way. In a good way.
So say if it was like 4:00 in the afternoon and you got off work or college early, and he was sitting on Discord or TeamSpeak, well, you knew that you weren't going to go to bed past
Exactly.
before midnight
Exactly,
that night.
Yeah,
No, like there would be times it would be like 3 a.m. or something. And I'm like, I gotta go to bed, but I also have to keep
But
listening to what he's
also,
gonna say next because I feel like he's gonna drop something that I just had never thought about before. And often, yeah, that's exactly what happened.
he would, like a thing he really liked to talk about was things like cryptids and possession,
And meta history.
and meta history, and
The future of the church.
Yeah,
He
he was
was-
very, very adept, like on his like Vatican politics, and he would. I mean, he has the word. I mean, he's very strong Vaticanista. He was very up to speed on that kind of thing, and he would know how to integrate that data within a forward thinking vision of where the church should be.
I think so. Is the website 1Peter5 still around? And then there's
it is.
It's not
It
running
is.
Skojek anymore.
It is, and Skojek doesn't run it anymore, thankfully.
But there's there was Skojek, and then there was Taylor Marshall, and these kind of people that were like Vaticanistas. And if you ever looked into them, it would be the most soul-crushing, depressing thing of like fear porn and stuff.
Yep.
What I will say about Knight Errant and his ability to follow, I could never follow what was going on in the Francis papacy to this day because it was so blackpilling or sad but he just had this very strong resilience, a much stronger resilience than like anybody at all pretty much online, just to be able to kind of like see through it and to just kind of see the bad stuff that's going on and keep his head up.
Unfortunately, towards the end, it really started to get to him, but but he persevered. I mean, he's still he's still stuck through it. He was very, very, very weighed down by the Traditionis Custodes document that really impacted him spiritually for the worse. But I think that the sacrificial love that he showed by persevering and following his conscience to the best of his ability to keep the faith, I think that is going to that I have no doubt is going to reflect in the degree of glory that he receives in heaven.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have. Again, I personally, I would never have been Catholic were I would never have become Catholic were it not for him.
Same here.
Well, another thing about him and staying Catholic and everything, when you talk to him, I don't know if you guys felt this, but I did. When I talked to him about what's going on in the church or about Catholicism, I felt like Catholicism was, you know, institutionally, it was in a bad state, but the way he spoke about it and the way he would uh, sort of speak about what's going on in the church, I still got the sense that that Catholicism is cool.
He had a way of making you feel connected to the eternal coolness behind the mess and the cringe.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a good way to say it because he made you feel like just being a Catholic and absorbing the ancient traditions. The way that he would speak about them made you feel like you were tapping into something cool and esoteric and eternal and unchanging, even though the institutional veneer of it all is kind of crumbling. Nevertheless, he was very insistent on the the underlying uh, eternal value of the Catholic faith that it's and that it will still uh, persevere unto the end.
Yeah, he was um he reminded us of the promise of Christ that that he would be with us to the end. That's really rare these days. I mean,
I think he was in many ways a walking and talking um, mirror of the sensus fidelium.
oh yeah,
That is a really good way of putting it.
that is that
I
is
think
that is a really good way of putting it.
the way that he expressed his faith in particular uh, made you feel like he sort of his way of thinking and his way of speaking about the Catholic faith. I think one of the inspirations for this podcast is to kind of evoke the imagery of the Goliards, right?
Mm-hmm. Go
And
on.
yeah, and just the way that he would speak about the faith and that he would think about the faith and that he would interpret all of these corrupt Vatican dealings and so on. Uh, if you were ever to think what is the sensus fidelium in this time and place, you would just talk to Knight Errant and you would get it. Like how would a Catholic that's tapping into the eternal spring of uh, of the mystical body of Christ, underlying the institutional corruption. In other words, tapping into going back to that Meditations of the Tarot book that he would always recommend to me, the tapping into the Church of John, even though the Church of Peter is kind of you know crumbling in its in its appearances, right?
Yes.
If you wanted to know what is someone who is fully tapped into that, how does the sensus fidelium react to these things? You would talk to Knight Errant, and you would get a clear vision of that.
That's very high praise, and that's entirely true. Like, that is what he would do. He was, and I'm sure when we see him again, his
God willing.
status. What?
God willing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
God willing, when we see him again, his status will be that of having been a walking, talking white pill dispenser.
Yeah,
Because that is what he was. That is what he was.
and he wasn't all like he wasn't trying to push this message of like puppies and rainbows. Everything's gonna be great. Everything's gonna be fine.
I
But
mean,
no,
quite the opposite. I mean, he
yeah,
was he
He
was
could be completely honest about how things were, but like Aragorn or something like that, he was nonetheless a beacon of hope.
oh
but you know what it
wow.
was? It was
I'm such a
I
whenever
would
I would
Hey,
start
can
to
I
say
think
say
that
something?
the church is
Oh,
looking really gay these days.
Hey, can I
Everything
say
is.
something?
yeah, let Sir Kirk go first.
I was just going to say, at least I would say he genuinely had a more negative opinion for like of what was going on at the current moment than me and classical theists had many times.
Mhm.
He definitely wasn't like some sugar-coaty, sweep stuff under the rug type of person. He definitely was not that.
Right, but
Oh
when
yeah.
you spoke to him and you listened to how he would express his views on the faith and things that were going on in the church, you would say, okay, I get the sense that things are looking really bad in the church, but this is how, like, if to be a Catholic means I just have to mirror and imitate this in terms of how I absorb and interpret this data, then I'm just as attracted to the faith as I've ever been.
Mhm. Uh, um, I was just going to say, and this is just for Terlian's benefit. I was just going to say beacon of hope recruitment system, but yeah, that's a divide and conquer reference. But anyway,
A mod for
um,
Medieval 2 Total War.
yeah,
Yeah. Which Knight Errant was a fan of and would play.
yes. Which Earl of Sodor is a very big fan of now.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of things about Knight is there was almost no topic that we couldn't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And our interests overlapped enough that it was always easy to talk about him.
He
About,
has
about almost
he
anything.
had he had and dare I say, well, he definitely has it now. But yeah, he had a better understanding of the topic of my PhD thesis than anyone else in my faculty, and I'm not exaggerating in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's knocking your faculty or complimenting him. You might want to give him higher praise. I think you're damning him with faint praise right now.
Uh,
I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
well, of course you are, or you're such a tease.
Academics are crap, and he was a very, very good example of how you didn't have to be credentialed to know anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because for him, health and personal issues had interfered with his education at many points in his life, and it really hurt his ability to get an education and perhaps to focus and hone his intellectual acumen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Imagine how powerful it would have become if he would have combined his just raw ability to absorb and integrate and comprehend information, just that raw ability that he had, with just like a full-fledged like academic set of credentials.
Yeah, the cancer really got in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason why Gabriel Syme is such a drooling retard. I mean, imagine if he had the patience, to acquire credentials, right? Imagine how powerful he would be.
You cannot stop me.
What's that?
You cannot stop me. Soon Darth Errant will be more powerful than either of us. Sorry.
I feel like things are about to get a lot worse in the church now because I think that God might have taken him because as sort of a
His,
sort of
his graces were suited to circumstances prior to those which are coming.
Kind of
yeah
reminds me of like when things got really bad after like Father Gruner died.
yeah I remember that because before Father Gruner died, Francis seemed to sort of everybody knew he was liberal. He would say liberal things, but you still got the sense that he didn't want to necessarily cause division.
Yeah.
Whereas now that cat is way out of the bag now,
Yeah, now it's just
and
entirely
it
masked off.
impact Errant a lot spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would talk about in the last months, like he felt like he was constantly being like beaten with the crozier for doing nothing wrong.
Yeah, he did not have a good bishop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But he did persevere, and he did receive last rites.
Yeah, that's important to bring up. He did absolutely receive.
And he was a
last rites.
devotee of the Blessed Scapular, of the Brown Scapular.
Yep.
So.
And I also think that the fact that he died on the anniversary of Blessed Carl's coronation, to whom he had a very strong devotion. I mean, he even went to the shrine in what state was it now? I think Texas or something. Yeah,
That was one of the last things he did before he
Yeah, it's one of the
passed.
last things he did. Yeah, I think that's a sign. That's definitely a sign.
When people say internet friends aren't real, we really see that, and just the amount of people who rallied behind him is really impressive.
I want to say something about how good of a friend like he was. Whenever you would talk to him, you would get the sense that he really wanted to. He knew what your strengths were, and he wanted to cultivate them.
Yes,
That's the sense that I got because
He's a major reason I went back to school, by the way.
Yeah, like he knew, for example, that I was trying to put together some kind of a medium through which I could contribute my studies in Catholic metaphysics, Thomistic philosophy that could help people. And he would talk to me a lot about like here's what you should do. Here's what I think would work in terms of very practical advice. And then he would bring me on to do in Taberna because he thought that my uh, my my thinking would contribute to a good outcome for that. And another thing that he would do is like there would be some people on this uh, team speaking in our Telegram chat who would
That's
kind of
right,
be
guys. We have a Telegram chat.
who would seem to be a little
And
bit
a
more
TeamSpeak,
in like
yeah.
the background of like the main people there, but he would seek them out. He would see like he wanted to know what they had to say. He wanted to know he took a very strong interest in the lives of every single one of his friends within our group, even if they only showed up on the TeamSpeak or whatever, like once a month or whatever. He would take a very active interest in everybody.
I remember he went without me telling, unprompted by me. He tried to do intelligence gathering while talking to this girl I liked. And then he told me, it's like, all right, all right, Tyrillian, here's what you do.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
He even tried
She
to
knows
set
about
me
that.
up with. He even tried to set me up with one of his friends. That was really decent of him. Yeah, yeah. It didn't really work out, but points for trying.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely had a certain soft spot for a lot of the more marginal people in our circles.
Are you implying
Often
that
to a
I'm
fault.
one of the marginal people in our circles?
No, no. Well, I repeatedly rejected your friend request because you're not white, but and it took me a while to get past the fact that you weren't white. Yeah, it was almost to a fault in the case of Knight Errant because I think he would often try to see the best in people that really just kind of sucked, and had very little in the way of redeeming
Mhm.
qualities. But
But
sometimes he was very much vindicated in his
that's true.
efforts to find the best in people. There are cases where I ultimately changed my mind because of him.
And I would say that like that's a better excess to have than the inverse.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I tend to see the worst in people, and I'm very very dismissive of people, and I tend to kick them out of my life with very few scruples.
Mm-hmm.
And having him to balance that aspect of myself out, while also being a bit of a hard ass himself in his own way,
Yep.
really helpful. I don't think any of my other friends are going to be able. I think I'm going to be a lot more uncompromising now that he's dead.
Yeah. And
No,
who knows?
no,
You
you
might
annoy
pick
me.
somebody out who
Buzz
would have
off.
been a tremendous asset to you now,
Hmm. Mhm.
He's not. I will keep him in line. Yeah, I'll make sure he doesn't do that.
Oh, this is
Uh,
no one right now, but like, other
or it
people. in the
might
past.
happen in the future.
Yeah. No, you can't keep me in line, meme fryer, because like you're hanging by a thread yourself.
What the fuck? I mean, what the fuck? Why?
I hate you so much.
Yeah, but one of the things I'm very thankful for is that for some reason, um, Knight Errant loved me a lot. I mean,
He did. He really did.
it's really funny when I think
Yeah.
about it.
He loved us all so much, to quote his wife.
Yeah.
And it really, 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 really sucks that he's
I
gone.
mean, yeah, such a powerful person when they're gone.
I
You
mean,
just
for Pete's sake, he even had that one left calf that he absolutely detested, who remembered him fondly when he heard that he died.
yeah, no, he said something to the effect that he was the most like charismatic and interesting person to tell him that he's gonna go to hell or something like that.
Well, I mean, he was even able to bring like that's the thing. As much as he hated left calves, even he could elicit some of their humanity.
Yeah, no, he commanded respect. I mean, that's what you have to say about him is that even if like even if he railed against you on the timeline, probably if you're like a left cat or something, um, he still commanded respect
Hmm.
because of how how interesting of a person that he was, because of how deeply he thought about everything.
That's the final lesson that he taught us. He was the Grey Company.
Yeah, yeah. He was no ranger, but he was the Grey Company in fulfilling the ultimate purpose of that company.
I think one thing you said was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, "Man, what a badass! He never even got old."
Yeah.
Another thing about him was how perfectly he was able to coin terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he coin the? I'm gonna sound stupid if he
Did he
didn't
coin
actually
left
coin this.
cats?
No, but
But
did
he
he coin
definitely
the?
used it.
Did he coin the normie meme prison term?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
something that like he would say it, and then you were like, well, man, I had all of these scattered thoughts to describe exactly what you just said in like 3 words. And now I'm going to think about that concept much more clearly and realize just how well it applies to so many people. Like I think one preeminent example was Steve Skojak. Like he's the example of somebody who may have like access to a lot of, for lack of a better term, esoteric information, but fundamentally, the guy's a normie. He just can't think outside of that.
Remember how much he would
you
freak
would say
out
the
whenever
normie meme prison.
whenever he encountered any criticism of Jewish people? Skojak
Yeah,
does.
yeah. But I mean,
Another
that was just such a perfect term, right?
another one he had was red pill poisoning.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think of how well that applies to certain people. I mean,
Oh gosh, it applies so well to too many people.
and
I
that's
mean,
he would do this all the time. By the way, he would really help you think about things going on at such a rapid pace. He would give you terms to help think about it and
didn't
know what to do about it.
didn't he have like? Did he come up with turbo normies and like neocasts and like?
He my dad loved him.
Yeah.
I mean my dad misses him because he's one of the he's one of the few of my friends my dad actually spoke to. Like, he actually has spoken to. So yeah.
Hi,
Um,
Carillion.
yeah. My dad is turbo autistic. I mean, I have
He's as autistic as Meme Fryer. These things are if in case anyone doubts that these things are genetic.
My dad he also has like fucking massive hands.
Yeah. Just like you.
Another thing that I'm actually super proud of is that the profile picture, the Abby that nice beam that
Night used.
that Knight used to literally his dying day. I made that for him.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, now you do.
It described him so well too, like that Avi, because you have this guy with this light sword and he's scrolling Twitter.
Yep. And smoking a cigarette because we all know that the man enjoyed his
Yeah.
cigarettes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was a bit of a Heya Hoya, right? So.
I just love how he like I loved his own just self-image of his native identity. It was just so funny.
Literal shaman.
Yeah, there was a kind of perfect synthesis of his Irish and Amerindian heritage going on.
Yeah.
It made him really, 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 really based in schizo.
Fucking
Yes.
love him.
He brought the schizo out in me so hard sometimes.
Yeah, like with all the cryptid stuff.
Just the Fae. He really believed in the Fae. He was a true believer in the Fae.
So do I, by the way.
I mean, so do I.
That Celtic pill.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, I fucking
He made
believe in the
all of that
existence
stuff
of.
just sound so eminently reasonable and respectable too. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider the possibility of a lot of that stuff if it wasn't for him.
He did say he met some gnomes, so
Yeah, he did. Like he told that whole story,
It wasn't a story.
and
It
he
was
would
true.
be insistent on sort of the benign nature of it, so that he excluded. Not he didn't absolutely exclude it, but he was pretty sure it wasn't like a manifestation of a demon or something. He was pretty sure it was benign.
Well, there's a lot of, and then you actually look at the folklore around this, and you realize, well, our ancestors weren't all a bunch of retards. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know about mine, man. So I don't know.
Your ancestors were not retards; they were just not white.
And they live in a spiritual swamp.
Yeah, let's not forget that.
Yeah, that's true. How many generations of living in the Arctic do you think it would take for me to turn white?
As long as a kalpa.
Oh boy.
He's still Lamarckian pilled.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Hey, Knight Errant would tell you to accept who you are and to glory in your Brahmin heritage.
Well, he was half Irish and half American Indian, but he definitely was proud of both of those halves, and he taught me how to be proud of being Irish. I would say that.
Same here. I mean, there was a time when I was really, really black-pilled about being part Irish, and I briefly considered even changing my name to my mother's maiden name. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Which is French.
Not your best moment.
Well, I mean, it was after the abortion referendum, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And but he taught me to be proud of being Irish again, and he taught me how to blame English people for all our problems again. And again, he made it sound plausible,
Oh yeah.
But then again, it's not that hard to make that plausible. I mean, come on, Anglos.
They are the eternal Anglos.
Yeah.
I mean, they are behind the Jewish question. They are the puppet masters of the Jews.
Yeah, and the puppet masters of the Anglos are the Swedes.
And the puppet masters of the Swedes are the Finns.
It all comes down to the Finns, who in turn are puppeteered by the remaining Neanderthals.
Yes, because it all goes back to the Finno-Korean hyperwar.
who are in turn controlled by the last remainders of the root races of the Dasas.
Who in turn are controlled by the lizard people from Land of the Lost.
Who are in turn controlled by the Fae.
Who are in turn controlled by someone that we thought was a friend, but apparently it isn't. And no, I'm not talking about my latest crush. I'm talking about Gabriel Syme.
So what you're saying is that the Fae are ultimately controlled by the Irish, and the Irish really are behind everything.
Yep.
The eternal Pat. Eternal Patty.
Yeah.
I fucking love you guys so much, by the way. So yeah.
I hate you. I regularly dream of destroying you.
Oh, come on, man. You don't mean that.
I love you too. And I love Knight Errant. I hope I can see him again someday.
We will.
Well,
just if you guys want to meet Knight Errant someday, just make sure you don't masturbate.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
if you never got a chance to meet him, just
start by abstaining from masturbation. That's the first step.
That's the advertisement to get a chance to meet Knight Errant.
That's the advertisement for NoFap, yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you want to hear him go on and on about like cryptids in heaven.
But what if James Martin is right and that hell is where the homophobes go?
Then like Hellraiser is right.
Then to quote Desmond Tutu, I would not worship such a god.
Well, Clive Barker. Heaven to some, hell to others.
But yeah, I think that's a good place to sort of wind down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really, really love it.
Basically, pray for his soul, even though I'm pretty sure he's probably taken care of by now. Nevertheless, still pray for his repose. Specifically, pray to Blessed Karl of Austria.
And to the brown scapular. He was very devoted to that
Yeah,
as well.
and you know what? Eventually, start praying to him because
Yeah.
I think
And
that
pray for his widow and
yes,
his
absolutely.
son.
Yes. Those of you who don't know, he got married
And
a couple
yeah,
years ago, a few years
His
ago.
widow
and
remains
he
a good
has-
friend to us.
yes, of course.
Yeah, and he has a son, so please keep them in your prayers.
Really, really, really hope we can really, really hope that, when his son is old enough, we can make him listen to the recordings and make him
Especially this episode.
yeah, and make him read them chat logs. Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Yep.
Yeah. God bless.
See you,
God bless.
kings.
Rip into Taberna.